Troy is one of those, like, he one of them type of, he wake up, eat, sleep, shit, this drill shit. T-Roy, you ain't gotta be scared of him if you one of the guys, you know what I'm saying? But if you on that other side, you should be terrified of him. Like terrified of him, like, for good reason.
Just different, you know what I'm saying? He was a real enforcer. Shorty is a savage on all. Another motherfucker that was feeling.
Nearly 3 years after his shocking death in Atlanta, Davin Daquan Bennett, better known as King Von, is still making waves in the rap game. Even in 2023, new tracks of his keep dropping, and his name keeps popping up, not just for his music, but for the dark shadows from his past that keep surfacing. Reports tied him to a string of violent crimes and murders connected to Chicago's notorious gang scene. Some even started labeling him a serial killer. That's how deep it got. It's no surprise a lot of rappers were seriously shook when it came to Von. But what really had them scared? Let's break it down, starting with his wild circle of affiliates. First off, Von didn't roll solo. He was always surrounded by some seriously dangerous individuals. You know what they say? You are who you hang with. And in Von's case, that meant trouble. These weren't just regular street dudes. Some were already known in the rap game, while others blew up after they died. Names like Lil Durk and T-Roy pop up quick when talking about Von's inner circle. But one name stands out the most: James Johnson, better known as T-Roy. Don't let his small frame fool you. Standing at about 5 feet 1 inch, this dude had a rep as a cold-blooded shooter for the Black Disciples straight out of Oblock. While he wasn't famous during his life, his name started ringing heavy in the streets and in rap lyrics after he passed. Folks he ran with couldn't stop telling wild stories about him in interviews and songs. T-Roy was linked to multiple shootings and suspected murders during Chicago's brutal gang wars. His presence was so feared, rumors flew that he might have been Chief Keef's personal hitman. Chief Keef only made that talk louder by dropping T-Roy's name in songs. In his track, No Reason, Keef raps, "I'm cooling in the trap, getting high for no reason. T-Roy grabbed my strap. He going to blast for no reason."
You know, it's probably a little nigga syndrome. You growing up and shit. Everybody thinking you 10 years old. Probably got to a point where you was tired of him thinking because he little is chicken.
Fed up with the treatment he got because of his short stature, he turned to the one thing that would keep all his bullies at bay. T-Roy got himself a gun. In fact, he made sure he had the best and biggest gun in the block just to show everyone who was boss.
Whatever the biggest gun is, Troy got.
And in Savage, he shouts him out again. "Roy, he got the semi! He'll send your ass to heaven." That's how folks described T-Roy, and Chief Keef made sure to put it in his lyrics loud and clear. And he didn't stop there.
And T-Roy was like that with him his last little moments, and T-Roy, and then T-Roy said that, oh, like, damn, they got me, bro. Like, that was his last word. Love, like, overly love. His funeral was packed. One of the first deaths that was from the ops. When you one of the first to die, man, it hit hard.
In the track Self, Keef dropped another shout out. "Don't care if you with them or by yourself. T-Roy got a gun that's bigger than him." That kind of line wasn't just rap, it was a warning. After T-Roy's death, the streets lit up with stories about how savage he really was. His old crew couldn't stop talking about him. Boss Top, another name from Oblock, straight up said T-Roy was fearless in the field. Dude didn't flinch when it came to gang business. He was about that life all the way. Take Capone, another rapper from Chicago, revealed that T-Roy basically lived for the smoke. He'd eat, sleep, then hop in a whip and slide on his enemies without hesitation. And Capone added something wild. T-Roy's ops? They were terrified of him. This wasn't just hype. This was real fear running through the streets whenever his name came up. So how did this young dude become one of the most feared names out of Chicago? Some say it was built over time. Others think it all snapped at once. According to Tay Capone, T-Roy didn't always start out as a savage. He got pushed into that lifestyle. Being short made him an easy target at school. He got clowned, pushed around, and looked down on until he said enough was enough. T-Roy decided to stop being a target. He picked up a gun, and not just any gun. He made sure it was the biggest piece on the block.
That shit changed T-Roy. That shit changed T-Roy.
That was his way of saying, "You want to try me now?" But there's more to the story. Jay Hood, another former Oblock member and childhood friend, gave an even deeper take. He said the real turning point for T. Roy, real name James Johnson, came from trauma. Pure heartbreak. He watched one of his closest friends, someone he looked up to like a hero, die right in front of him.
It was August 10th, 2011, just before midnight. Odie Perry, a popular Wick City member, was cruising on his bike near the 6,400 block of South Martin Luther King Drive. But peace didn't last long. What happened next didn't just shake that block. It changed it forever, according to people who were there to witness the chaos unfold.
Me, T-Roy, all us, Vaughn, we used to be in cahoots. They used to have guns, but we just used to have it so that the big guys wouldn't call us pussy. It's just like when you grew up in the hood and it's like, you ain't getting no pussy, you ain't no nothing, you a lame, you a goofy, so niggas finna do what? We finna try to fucking do all this. We might not even want it, but like we finna try to open ourselves up to it so niggas can't talk about it.
As Odie Perry pedaled past the auto zone that night, nobody saw it coming. Out of nowhere, a figure with dreadlocks crept up, quiet, calculated. And before Odie could react, it was too late. The shooter pulled out a piece and let off multiple rounds. Witnesses nearby said they saw not one, but two people bolt from the scene, hopping into a car that peeled off fast. Meanwhile, Odie was left lying in the street, bleeding out. As the siren stayed silent and help took its time, one person stayed by Odie's side, T. Roy.
Run up on me, I will shoot you. No problem. I will shoot you.
According to Jay Hood, who used to run with Oblock, Odie's last words to him were heartbreaking. "They got me, bro."
Odie wasn't just anybody. He was loved, respected, practically worshipped in Parkway Gardens. His death shook the whole neighborhood to its core. The gang he repped, Wick City, didn't just mourn, they transformed. They renamed themselves Oblock in his honor. His funeral, packed wall to wall. People from all over the city showed up to pay their respects. The whole hood had never seen a loss like this, one of their own, taken down so brutally.
But while the whole community hurt, nobody took it harder than T. Roy, the one who heard those final words. First, he was in shock, holding his friend, his idol, as he slipped away. Then came the sorrow. But after that, something deep inside him snapped. Jay Hood said it plain. T. Roy wasn't the same after that night. That moment broke something in him. Or maybe it built something. Either way, one thing was for sure. Odie's death had to be avenged. No questions asked. Before that tragedy, T. Roy wasn't even deep in the gang life. Sure, he carried heat.
K.I. was like a pest. I remember her riding on the bike, like, you know, taunting us, and nigga, we trying to chase her back on the block, but she get out of that skirt on the bike, she gone. And you know, she was somebody that like
But it wasn't about catching bodies. It was just to keep up with the older guys. Jay Hood said they'd clown the younger ones, so carrying guns became a way to earn some respect. But T. Roy wasn't out there hunting ops like that, until Odie died. That's when the real change hit. The old T. Roy was gone. In his place was a shooter with one goal: slide on his enemies any chance he got. He didn't hide it either. He'd go on social media, bold as ever, throwing it out there that he was ready to handle business, anytime, anywhere. He wasn't bluffing. He meant every word. Two of the most talked about names linked to T. Roy's deadly path: Boss Trell and Lil Doc. On January 8th, 2013, T. Roy, King Von, and two other hitters jumped into a Chevy Impala, cruising slow through enemy turf. They weren't joyriding, they were on the hunt. Circling around 63rd and St. Lawrence, deep in rival territory, they locked eyes on a familiar face: Marlon Monroe, better known in the streets as Lil Doc. According to reports, Lil Doc had just finished a long shift painting a building owned by his aunt in the Woodlawn neighborhood. The man was tired, thirsty, and just trying to grab a drink from a corner store. But the second he stepped inside, T. Roy made his move. He hopped out the car, strap in hand, and didn't hesitate. Shots rang out. Lil Doc tried to dip, running for his life, but a bullet caught him. He collapsed into a patch of tall weeds in a vacant lot near the store. Cops rolled through, scoped the scene, and left, completely unaware that his body was lying right there. Hours later, a 16-year-old family member racing home before curfew stumbled across his lifeless body on the 6,300 block of South Street. Lawrence.
Turns out, Lil Doc was trying to flip his life around. Just 2 months out of prison, he was on parole after doing time for stealing a car. While locked up, he earned his GED and had plans to get a painter's license. He was doing maintenance work for his aunt, trying to go legit. But the streets didn't care about second chances. Then came the death of Boss Trell, another heavy name in the city, and someone connected to the killing of one of T. Roy's close homies, Sheroyd Liggins. Police found Trell lying in the street, 1 bullet to the head. He was rushed to Stroger Hospital in critical condition, but he didn't make it. What makes this even more tragic? Boss Trell knew the streets were closing in on him. He had been trying to leave Chicago behind. The violence had spiraled out of control, and he wanted out. He understood the code: live by the gun, die by the gun, and he was trying to break that cycle by moving to another city.
But it was already too late. Weeks before his death, Trell had been targeted multiple times. First, OB 600 members lit up a spot he was at. Then, on separate occasions, King Von and Big A reportedly fired at him. That pressure was real, and Trell was panicking. He wanted a new life, far from the South Side, but the streets wouldn't let him go.
Boss Trell was trying to escape the streets, literally. He bought a bus ticket to Iowa, hoping to start fresh and leave the chaos of Chicago behind. The ticket was for November 10th, 2012. Just 3 days before his departure, he even tweeted, "Can't wait till I get my new start."
I think at some point you take the picture in front of Oblock, in front of the King Von. So what was going on with all that?
Dirk told me to do that.
Dirk told you to do that?
Yeah.
Okay.
But that tweet, it turned out to be a fatal mistake. That post tipped off his enemies. It told them exactly what they needed to know. He was trying to run, and in their world, that just wasn't allowed. Word on the street is that T. Roy and his crew cooked up a plan to trap him before he could disappear. They allegedly used a girl to bait him, setting up a fake meetup.
Trell showed up the next day, thinking he was meeting the girl alone. But she never came. Instead, a car crept up on him. The second he realized what was happening, he took off running. But it was already too late. His enemies were right behind him, spraying shots. He didn't make it. Just 2 days before his escape plan was supposed to play out, Boss Trell's body was found face down in an alley on the 2600 block of West 83rd Street. 1 shot, straight to the back of the head. Cold. Ruthless. The news of his death spread fast, and some of his rivals celebrated. On Twitter, they mocked him. One tweet read, "Boss Trell thought he could get away from the rack, but look who he bumped into." The message was clear. Nobody escapes. But fate doesn't play favorites, and the same lifestyle T. Roy had lived so boldly eventually caught up with him. On Valentine's Day, 2017, he was walking with a friend through the 2000 block of East 71st Street in the South Shore neighborhood. What he didn't know was that his enemies, TB and Can't Get Right, were nearby, already scoping him out.
Surveillance footage later showed them stalking the streets, eyes scanning every corner. T. Roy and his homie ducked into a store, probably thinking it was just another normal day. Inside, they stood in one of the aisles, talking.
Seconds later, TB and Can't Get Right stepped into the store. TB's right hand was hidden slightly behind his back. He was packing. Then, with no hesitation, he raised his piece and fired. T. Roy dropped right there on the spot. He was rushed to Northwestern Memorial Hospital, but the damage was done. He didn't make it.
And then Von walked up to me, and I shook his hand. He like, "Look straight." And then I looked straight, and I'm like, "Why? Why are you telling me to look straight?" He like, "Look straight, and what I'm finna say to you, don't look at me after I tell you."
The news hit the city like a shockwave. Big names in the rap scene, who had been close to T. Roy, flooded social media with grief. His death was a full circle moment. He died the same way he lived, in the middle of a war that never really had a winner. After T-Roy's death, the rap world lit up with reactions from some of Chicago's biggest names, Lil Durk, Lil Reese, 600 Breezy, and even Chief Keef. These weren't just industry peers. They were close to Roy, part of the same circle, and the pain hit hard. At the time, King Von was locked up fighting a murder case. But even behind bars, the news crushed him. On Instagram Live, he admitted that when his mom told him about Roy's death, he broke down in tears, something he hadn't done in years.
Lil Durk, another heavy hitter in that same camp, also has a deep and controversial past tied to street life. Even though Durk's never been officially charged in the death of FBG Cash, a lot of people in the streets think he might have had something to do with it. The reason? FBG Cash had been dissing King Von non-stop after his death, and not just in tracks. He even disrespected Von's mural in public.
Shortly after, Durk posted a cryptic warning on his Instagram story that had folks raising eyebrows. "Don't diss if you be lingering and chasing, won't end well. That's marched." Everyone assumed he was aiming straight at Cash.
Durk didn't stop there. In his track Computer Murderers, he raps, "Sneaking pics by Von mural like Lil Bro won't come out and spin." Fans instantly connected the dots. Then things got real strange. Rumors started flying that a woman helped set FBG Cash up. And with Von's guys still grieving and watching every move, many believed that setup wasn't just random.
It sent a clear message. Even after death, Von's name demanded respect. Disrespect it, and consequences followed.
But Von's power didn't just come from his lyrics or street reputation. It came from his ties to Oblock. This wasn't just any clique. It was a faction of the Black Disciples, one of the most feared gangs in Chicago. When Von blew up in the rap scene, he didn't forget where he came from. As the money started rolling in, he looked out for the Oblock crew, buying some of them flashy, custom-made Oblock chains.
To them, Von wasn't just a friend, he was family. They rode for him hard. In fact, Oblock members often served as his personal security. His former manager, 100K Track, said straight up that he trusted Oblock with Von's life more than he trusted any professional security team. That kind of loyalty, it ran deep.
Why I just run up on KI and why I just ran up on them niggas and caught KI. She was the last one running out of the gate.
And it came at a cost. As we'll see later, 5 of those Oblock members now face potential life sentences tied to Von's legacy. But that didn't stop them from holding him down. With Oblock backing him, Von moved like he was untouchable.
There's even word on the street that Oblock had something to do with the murder of Lil Pab, a known associate of Quando Rondo. And in case you forgot, Quando's name is forever linked to Von's death. He may not have pulled the trigger, but his name is in the mix, and he added fuel to the fire by dissing Von in his tracks.
And that might have been the final straw for Von's people. That might have been the final straw, because after that, everything exploded. Quando Rondo's life flipped overnight into pure chaos. In an interview, Quando tried to play tough, saying, "Some come to me. That's how I'm about to go about that. Death threats all you want, bro. That's just some words. My people gonna move with action." But it didn't take long for those actions to show up. On November 19th, 2022, things got real at a gas station in Beverly Grove. Out of nowhere, multiple gunmen rolled up on Quando's crew in broad daylight and opened fire. Even though Quando wasn't hit, it was clear he was the one they came for. The whole scene was wild.
One of his boys caught a bullet and dropped. In a panic, Quando's crew loaded him into a black SUV and raced toward West Hollywood, trying to get help. Cops stopped them en route after catching wind of the shooting. They tried to save the victim, performing CPR on the sidewalk, but it was too late. He was unconscious and unresponsive. The ambulance rushed him to the hospital, but he didn't make it.
Not long after, Quando posted a pic on Instagram, confirming that the man who died was Lil Pab, a close friend. A video of Quando screaming as medics pulled Pab's body out. The car went viral. You could hear the pain in his voice.
No one from Oblock officially claimed the hit, but the streets had their suspicions. After all, this came not long after FBG Cash's death. And the pattern? Anyone who disrespected Von or was linked to his death didn't seem to last long. This only backed up what everyone was already saying. Von wasn't just surrounded by rappers. His crew was full of real shooters, people who wouldn't blink before pulling a trigger. Messing with Von meant you had to deal with all of them, and that's exactly why people feared him.
But here's the real question. Was King Von just a product of his environment? Or was he exactly like the people he ran with? That leads us into point number 2, his bloodlust. A lot of fans don't like talking about it, but Von wasn't just rapping about violence, he was living it. His friends even admitted it in interviews. And beyond the rumors, the feds had actual evidence tying him to several murders and shootings. After his death, the internet exploded with videos breaking down his alleged body count. Some even called him a serial killer.
While there are a bunch of cases people speculate about, there are 3 names the authorities officially linked to King Von: Gakira Barnes, FBG Duck, and Alexander Weatherspoon. But before diving into the murders that made Von one of the most feared names in the rap scene, let's rewind to something else he was known for: his fists. Von wasn't just about guns. He was quick to throw hands too. Whether it was behind bars or out in the streets, he was always down to scrap. There's even footage to prove it. One video shows Von walking up on an inmate and swinging without hesitation. The 2 trade punches until other prisoners step in to break it up.
And then there's another clip that shocked everyone. In it, Von slips out of his handcuffs, and before the cops even realized what was happening, he lunged at his target.
This was the kind of energy Von carried. Fearless, wild, and always ready for action.
In one wild prison video that leaked online, King Von is seen jumping up suddenly and heading straight toward another inmate. You can see both of them fumbling with their cuffs. Then, out of nowhere, Von slips free, like magic. The other inmate tries to duck and hide, but Von tracks him down fast and starts throwing brutal punches, knocking him flat to the floor.
It didn't stop there. 2 more inmates jumped in to help Von finish the job. Chaos broke out in the bullpen until guards rushed in just in time to separate them. Both Von and the other inmate were dragged out. The whole thing left people shook, but not surprised. Von had already built up a rep for taking action whenever he saw an op. But what really had folks scratching their heads was how Von even managed to escape from those cuffs. Even the guards were stunned. They confirmed that he'd been locked up tight, yet somehow he slipped out like it was nothing.
Turns out, the inmate who caught the beatdown was 051 Freaky, a known rival. And according to Lil Reese, Von's rage might have come from spotting a tattoo on Freaky, one that disrespected La Capone. Now, La Capone wasn't just some random rapper. He was an upcoming star and a close friend to Lil Durk.
La Capone was tragically shot on September 26, 2013. That evening, after leaving the studio, he walked alone down an alley near 70th and Stony Island to look for his ride. That's when Lil Mick, a member of 051 Young Money, allegedly rolled up and shot him dead. Von didn't forget, and he definitely didn't forgive. Even outside the jail walls, Von didn't shy away from confrontations. In fact, it was his final altercation that cost him his life. Von was caught on camera attacking rapper Quando Rondo, and minutes later, he was fatally shot. Here's how it all went down. Von and his crew had flown in from New York to Atlanta. He had big plans. Welcome to Oblock, his debut album, had just dropped, and the celebration was supposed to go down at Opium nightclub. After the party wrapped, the team was expected to head back to their Airbnb to chill and call it a night. But Von wasn't ready to go home.
Instead, he rerouted everyone to the Monaco Hookah Lounge. Outside in the parking lot, Von waited for a signal from his security to go inside. While posted up, one of his homies spotted something. Quando Rondo, chilling in a car, apparently half asleep.
In an instant, Von jumped out and rushed straight at him. Quando had just stepped out of his car and was walking toward the club when Von and his guys pulled up. Vaughn didn't waste time. He ran up and started throwing hands, knocking Quando to the ground. His crew followed right behind, delivering punch after punch as Quando tried to scramble away. But then, it all flipped. From behind the vehicle, one of Quando's guys popped up, Lil Tim. He had a piece in his hand, and without hesitation, he started firing shots. That moment ended King Von's life. All the fists, all the smoke, all the loyalty. It came to a violent, tragic close right there in the parking lot. King Von was pronounced dead after being shot and undergoing emergency surgery at Grady Hospital in Atlanta. But even in death, his reputation continued to stir fear. Because Von wasn't just known for his fists, he was a feared shooter, one with a dark past that couldn't be ignored. One of the most infamous murders tied to him by police was that of 17-year-old Gakira Barnes, better known in the streets as K.I. She wasn't your average teen. K.I. was dangerous. She had made a name for herself by terrorizing Oblock and their allies, and she was even credited with killing Odie Perry, a beloved figure in Von's crew. Her alleged involvement in Odie's murder didn't just stay in the streets. She flaunted it. K.I. taunted her enemies online. She posted disrespectful messages about Odie's death, even thanking him for being target practice. It was rumored she stole his gun after the hit and showed it off on social media like it was a trophy. That kind of mockery didn't go unnoticed, and it especially enraged Von. Word on the street was that Von took K.I.'s disrespect personally. He reportedly began plotting to take her out, just like she had done with Odie. And when it happened, it was brutal. K.I. was gunned down in a style similar to her own attacks, leading many to believe it was payback. K.I. had been labeled the female assassin by blogs. Despite her age, she was feared by many in Chicago. She repped the Gangster Disciples, a rival gang to Oblock, and specifically belonged to the STL-EBT set, also known as TCA-Fee. Even though her name rang bells in the streets, her mom painted a different picture. A sweet girl who once dreamed of becoming a social worker. But everything changed for K.I. on January 12, 2011. That night, her close friend Dale Gregory, better known as Tuca, was waiting at a bus stop on East 63rd Street when he was shot and killed. That murder shattered K.I. It lit a fire inside her that transformed her into one of the most feared young names in the city. She adopted the street name Snoop, inspired by the ruthless female killer from the TV series The Wire.
Rumors claimed that by age 14, K.I. had already caught a body, and some said she might have been responsible for up to 20 hits. Whether all of that was fact or fiction didn't matter to her enemies. They hated her. She was called a pest, a menace, someone who had to be dealt with.
On April 11, 2014, that moment came. A hooded gunman approached her and opened fire in front of a house on the 6400 block of South Eberhart. K.I. was hit 9 times, in the mouth, neck, and chest. She tried to run, collapsing at a neighbor's doorstep before passing out. She was taken to Northwestern Memorial Hospital but didn't survive. She wasn't alone that day. Her brother, FBG Duck, and a friend were with her and also got shot. But both survived. It was clear K.I. was the main target. Von was arrested in connection with her murder after multiple eyewitnesses pointed fingers. But when it came time to go to court, the case didn't stick. The police didn't have enough to lock him up. The evidence was too weak, and the charges were eventually dropped. Still, the streets had already made up their mind. Von was responsible. Years after King Von was fatally shot in Atlanta, the truth about his street legacy kept unfolding, and one of the biggest bombshells came when reports confirmed that Von did, in fact, kill Gakira Barnes, aka K.I. According to official police files, the shooter was described as wearing a gray hoodie and blue jeans. He walked up to the group, pulled out a handgun, and fired at all 3 victims, hitting every one of them, before fleeing in an unknown vehicle. Jay Hood, a former Oblock affiliate who was tight with Von, later spoke out about that day. He claimed Von had personally confessed to the hit. Jay said Von came up to him right after it happened and told him, "I just shot 3 people. K.I. was the last one." And just as Vaughn finished those words, Jay remembered hearing sirens in the distance. They were closing in.
But not everyone agrees with that version. KI's brother, FBG Duck, who was actually at the scene when the shots were fired, has long denied that Vaughn was the shooter. He stood by that denial publicly for years. However, in a shocking twist, police documents surfaced in 2023 contradicting Duck's statements. In those documents, Duck reportedly told investigators that Vaughn was indeed the killer. The records describe him as Cooperator 3 and clearly state he was present and witnessed his sister's murder, naming Oblock member Davin Bennett, aka King Von, as the shooter.
But KI wasn't the only person linked to Vaughn in murder investigations.
Another name that shook the city was Carlton Weekly, better known as FBG Duck. On August 4th, 2020, Duck was gunned down in broad daylight in the upscale Gold Coast area of Chicago, Michigan Avenue and East Oak Street. It was bold, it was calculated, and everyone knew this was a hit.
Just a couple months later, on October 13th, the feds moved in hard. Oblock was raided, and 5 men were taken into custody for Duck's murder. Those 5 were Charles Liggins, aka C. Murda, Kenneth Robertson, aka Kenny Mack, Carlos Offord, aka Loss, Christopher Thomas, aka C. Thang, and Marcus Smart, aka Muop. They were hit with a stack of federal charges: murder, racketeering, unlawful use of firearms, and assault with dangerous weapons. If convicted, they were looking at life, minimum. And prosecutors were reportedly even considering pushing for the death penalty. But it gets even crazier. According to an informant, someone had put a $50,000 bounty on FBG Duck's head, but nobody was willing to move for that price. So what happened next? The bounty got bumped to $100,000. That's when the wheels started turning. The same informant told authorities that whoever put up that cash had also rewarded the shooters with custom-made Oblock chains after Duck was killed. Now, Vaughn's name was never directly listed in those files, but at the time, he was the one making serious money. He had the influence, the reach, and the resources to make something like that happen. That's why many believe he might have been the one who ordered the hit, even if it was all done behind the scenes.
The streets had their own version of justice. And for Vaughn, it seemed like the war never really stopped, whether he was in a booth, behind bars, or 6 feet under.
Everything started lining up when a video surfaced online. King Von himself was caught on camera handing out custom-made Oblock chains to his crew. That clip set the internet on fire. And for many, it was all the proof they needed. Out of everyone from Oblock, Vaughn was the only one with that kind of cash flow. He had blown up in the rap game, and money wasn't a problem. He had the funds to reward loyalty or settle scores. Then things took a darker turn. Internet sleuths started digging and came across something unexpected. The suspected informant who spilled to the feds. Allegedly, it was King Von's own little brother, Louis V. According to federal paperwork, the informant had been arrested on August 17, 2020 for unlawful use of a weapon. Now here's the twist. Nobody else from Von's circle or from Oblock was arrested on that day or on that same charge. All signs pointed to one person, Louis V. And being Von's own blood, Louis would have had access to serious inside info, especially anything involving a possible move against FBG Duck. If that's true, it only added to Von's terrifying image. Not only was he known for pulling triggers, but now people believed he could also put bounties on his enemies. This wasn't just street beef anymore. This was tactical, planned, and deadly. And one man barely lived to tell his story, Alexander Weatherspoon. On February 5th, 2019, gunshots erupted in the parking lot of the Varsity, a well-known restaurant in Midtown Atlanta. Police pulled up fast and found a 23-year-old man lying next to a car, bleeding from a gunshot wound to the leg. That man was Alexander Weatherspoon. Witnesses reported seeing an SUV with 300 marked on the side speeding off right after the shots rang out. And it didn't end there.
Not only had Weatherspoon been shot, he was robbed. His gold chain, $30,000 in cash, and his car were all taken during the hit. Cops quickly launched an investigation, and before long, 3 suspects were arrested: King Von, Lil Durk, and Bezu. The arrest shocked fans. Lil Durk wasn't just Von's close friend. He was a chart-topping rapper with major clout. But according to investigators, Durk wasn't just along for the ride. He was listed as the main suspect. Durk was slapped with 5 serious charges:
Criminal attempt to commit murder,
aggravated assault, unlawful participation in gang activity,
possession of a firearm during a felony,
Possession of a firearm by a convicted felon.
This wasn't just about gang beef anymore. It was organized. And now the law had their eyes on every move Von and Durk were making.
From chain giveaways to potential snitches to attempted murder and armed robbery, Von's world was full of high-stakes chaos. And the deeper you looked, the scarier it got.
Cops claimed they had surveillance footage showing King Von firing his weapon directly at Alexander Weatherspoon. And while Von never got to face trial for it, what happened next left everyone stunned.
After Von's death, all the charges against Lil Durk were dropped. But that wasn't the part that shook people the most.
In a statement from the district attorney herself, Fani Willis, it was confirmed. If Von, real name Davin Bennett, had still been alive, he would have been indicted without question. According to the DA, Von was the one who actually pulled the trigger and shot Weatherspoon that night.
What made it even more intense? Weatherspoon wasn't just some random victim. He was affiliated with the Vice Lords, a known rival to Von's circle. Von didn't just spot an op. He handled it, just like he always had. Cold, fast, and without hesitation. When you really break it down, none of this comes as a surprise. From who Von rolled with, to how he moved, to the street code he lived by, violence followed him, and so did fear. He didn't just grow up around killers, he became one. And the legend of King Von? It's still echoing through the streets and the rap game alike. If you found this story wild, make sure to like, comment, and share this video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more shocking stories just like this one. See you on the next one.